And a big Friday welcome into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we are broadcasting 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. And you can watch live with us on Facebook. Easiest way to access that, lcpioneers.com/live, or go to our Facebook page. We also have all of our shows archived, youtube.com/lcpios, as we're keeping you connected with Lewis and Clark student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from the Lewis and Clark College community at large. Hello, I am Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and competing in the Northwest Conference, a member of the 9-team Northwest Conference featuring institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington. Plus, as a member of the NCAA Division III ranks, a chance for our student athletes to compete on a national scale with over 430 institutions at the NCAA Division III level. But what makes Lewis and Clark truly special from a student-athlete standpoint and the opportunity is to be in the only city within the Northwest Conference that has a population over 500,000 or more. It is really neat and a beautiful campus on Palatine Hill, just 6 miles southwest of downtown Portland. And with our overseas study program, too, it just adds to the experiential liberal arts education that our students and student athletes alike get to experience with really small class sizes, 18-to-1 faculty to student ratio or student to faculty ratio. So we really enjoy having these conversations, and today our guest will be Miguel Haro Ruiz. He is a recently graduated dual sport athlete, competed for both Lewis and Clark track and field and cross country, and excelled at some of the highest levels. In fact, his last Northwest Conference championships, which happened during the 2019 season when he was a junior, 2 top 3 finishes at the highest level within the conference, and as we'll talk to him, had his heights set high for the 2020 conference championships and the track and field season as a whole. But of course, with the coronavirus pandemic, the spring seasons were cut short, and certainly not an opportunity that he was able to see. But we'll talk to him about his double major, what's kind of ahead for him as he's now back in Spain, was in Portland. In fact, we had invited Miguel to join us a little bit earlier and happened to try to connect with him the week or so he was leaving Portland. So we just weren't able to connect, and now we'll have him evening time in Spain. If you have any questions for Miguel or any suggestions for a future guest, please get a hold of us in our comments section on Facebook Live. You can also email us at any time, sports@lclark.edu. Again, future suggestions for guests, always appreciated. And of course, you can connect with us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, both LC Pioneers. We invite you to connect with us there. And as I mentioned before, all of our shows archived at youtube.com/LCPio is important because we now have moved into week 21, just the last show of our week 21, being able to keep you connected with student athletes. And I've heard from so many people who aren't able to join us live, but end up able to watch at some point online on YouTube. So be sure to access that, our full playlist available. We're continuing to introduce new recruits, as we talked with Miguel's former head coach, Matthew Burrow, on Wednesday. Had a chance to talk to him about the incoming cross-country student athletes. Those are still announced at lcpioneers.com, which is our main website. Also a statement from the Northwest Conference regarding the recent suspension of fall and early winter 2020 competition, working on a spring focused schedule to try to compete sometime in the upcoming spring. So we'll have an announcement as soon as we are able at lcpioneers.com/COVID. But I know that that's a big task to try to move, 4 primarily fall sports and a handful of other sports who compete a little bit in the fall, plus the early winter sports of swimming and basketball, kind of shuffling that around. That's certainly a big task. And so I know they're working as hard as they can on that endeavor. So with all that said, let's bring in our guest for today, a recent graduate of the Lewis and Clark cross country and track and field programs. We're excited to bring in Miguel Haro Ruiz to the program. Hello, Miguel. Appreciate you taking the time. And like I mentioned, too, you're joining us evening time in Spain. Give me an idea of how nice it is to be back home. I usually start with this idea of why you chose Lewis and Clark, but it seems almost as intense of a journey to get back home with the pandemic and everything that's been happening over the last 5 months regarding that. What was the journey to get home for you from Portland?
Well, first of all, hi, and thanks for having me. It is great to be home, a great relief, especially after the abrupt end of the semester, and not really knowing what was gonna happen. A couple of my flights got canceled last minute, and luckily I was able to get home safely, and it's been good so far. I haven't spent much time out. I've been mostly quarantining, make sure I don't pose a risk to any of my family members or my friends. And but it's great. It's great to be home, and especially knowing that I finished that chapter at Lewis and Clark and successfully was able to graduate.
Uh, we talked about the spring being canceled, your outdoor track and field cut short after just the one event, and indoor track and field having such a successful year. I know you had such high hopes for the Northwest Conference Championships, but walk us through before we kind of get to where you thought you could be. What actually happened mid March? What was it like for your team to find out that the season was going to be canceled, and how were some of the ways you had to adjust as both a student and a student athlete?
Um, Coming into the spring season, we had a lot of high hopes. We were training, in particular the men's team, and we were training really hard, and we were almost at the peak of our training season, and getting ready to start fully competing. I only got the chance to run a 10K, which is not really. It was the first time I ran that distance, and it was kind of in preparation for the tougher stuff to come, and it was obviously disappointing and shocking at that point to end the season. Um, on a personal level, I was really hoping to repeat some of the things I had done a year prior, and get onto the top three, or even or even try to win conference at the 1500. Um, but then again, I see running track and running in general as a long term project, as a long term activity, and I've also been taking the time now that there wasn't that competitive pressure to heal and to get ready for the upcoming seasons. I had an injury, a sprained ankle in the fall, and although I was able to get back to it and get back to training and competing, it was bothering me here and there. So these months have been really helpful for me to fully heal and work on strengthening and work on um, being tougher for the next seasons.
We're talking to Miguel Haro Ruiz, a recent graduate of PIO's track and field and cross country on lcpioneers.com live. Let's start with let's go to that origin story that I mentioned. Why did you choose to ultimately come to Lewis and Clark? What was it about the opportunity to compete for the PIOs and in Portland that really enticed you?
Um, Once I set myself to go to college in the US, I was really shooting for a smaller school. I didn't want to take all my classes in huge halls with so many students and not getting a chance to know my professors and my classmates well. So that was a really important factor for me to go to a small school. And secondly, I didn't want to be in the middle of nowhere. I know that's really good for maybe to keep that academic mindset or that competitive mindset in terms of athletics, but I didn't want to be isolated. I wanted to be next to a city and get to know life in the U.S. In the urban setting, and Portland and Lewis and Clark really fit that those two criteria for me, and at the same time, I was able to join a team, a competitive team. I thought Division 3 was the perfect fit for me because as much as I like racing and competing and training competitively, um, I am mostly focused on the academic part of things. So Lewis and Clark had all those things to offer for me. Plus, I mean, I didn't get a chance to visit campus before actually joining new student orientation, pretty much. But once I got to campus, I realized how much how pretty of a campus we have, and how lucky of my choices I had been.
So, what is the process like when you're coming? into Lewis and Clark as an international student. We've heard a lot of stories from students who graduate stateside, but you were able to come in from an international perspective. For those who aren't familiar, what was your process like? What are some of the things that you had to get done?
So prior to coming to Lewis and Clark, I studied the International Baccalaureate in the UWC, in the United World College of Costa Rica, and that was really important to be able to apply to schools in the U.S. Having that IB diploma, it was pretty crucial, in fact. And secondly, I was lucky enough to have some college advisors at my high school that really pushed us to get to know schools all over the world, pretty much. Some of the people in my class ended up in Australia, going to school in Australia, in the UK, or so many other places in Europe. So having those advisors really supporting us on the way, and um, showing us and helping us how to apply to schools abroad. Also, something important to keep in mind, being an international student, if you're applying to schools in the U.S., really being ahead of the game, and planning ahead, as opposed to Spain in particular, which is the case I know the most, other than the U.S. The process is much longer. So it requires you to really look at schools early, and having a solid list of choices you want to apply, and then getting ahead with the application, and filling out all the application requirements, and making sure you have it all to get your application ready on time.
So you ended up double majoring and went with economics and international affairs. Describe those two majors, what some of the highlights were for you, and the reasons for choosing those paths.
So coming into Lewis and Clark, I knew I wanted to do something along the lines of politics, social sciences. Yeah, really get my hands dirty into developing policy, and um, I was pretty set for international affairs, and but um, this is something that is pretty unique, and pretty awesome about Lewis and Clark. It pushes you to take classes from a bunch of different departments, and because of my international affairs major, I was required to take an introduction to economics class, and it really gave me, taking this intro to economics class, really gave me a new perspective on things, and a new way to analyze things, and it really made me curious about going forward with that. So I decided to go with both, and I would have tripled major if I could, because it's always been hard for me to choose, and to pick. Um, but some of the highlights of both majors, I would say, from the international affairs perspective, the faculty is just awesome. We have great, super talented faculty. Um, one of my favorite classes that I've taken in Lewis and Clark was human rights, with a professor that sadly took another position at University of Arizona. But I was able to learn so much from that class, and from someone who really knows about international law, and has worked with so many organizations worldwide to improve human rights, and really work towards a universalization of human rights. So that was really cool. We also got to work on a project for the whole semester that required us to focus on a human right violation anywhere in the world, and to get our hands dirty, interview people in the field, and also some of the victims of those human rights violations. And that was really awesome to really learn from a case in particular, and become really really interested, and really knowledgeable about that case in particular. So that was definitely one of my highlights, not only of the international affairs major, but of my Lewis and Clark experience as a whole. And something really cool about the econ major is how it jumps across the more heavy theory and the application of that theory. So over the years and over some of the econ classes I took, I became really comfortable learning about a problem and choosing a theory, an economic theory that I thought it was suitable for that problem in particular, and then coming up with policy recommendations and some policy applications of that case in particular. So that was super useful, and it also set me for my next steps in life, and it really encouraged me to become policy advisor or a policy analyst. So that's something that really inspired me for my future career.
Miguel Haro Ruiz joining us on lcpioneers.com live. We're live Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. You can find us easily at lcpioneers.com/live, and all of our shows archived on our website, plus at youtube.com/lcpios. Miguel's a recent graduate, class of 2020, from both track and field and cross country. And Miguel, that's an area where I always like talking to dual sport athletes, especially those who kind of live in that same realm, with cross country and track and field being so closely related. What were some of your favorite moments, specifically being around the team, some of the aspects or characteristics of your team that you think will really stick with you when you describe what your experience was like competing?
Um, Definitely a lot of experiences come to mind and a lot of great times. Doing both cross country and track were my highlight of my college experience, and some really in particular I really enjoyed having preseason in cross country. I think that was so awesome and also great, especially coming as an international student in my freshman year and having those 2 weeks of preseason to get accustomed to not only school in Portland, but also to get to know my teammates and really um, roll into the semester really smoothly, and having those 2 extra weeks compared to any other freshman. Really, I thought of myself as really privileged to have that, and also coaches really think about preseason and really go the extra mile to make sure that we have an awesome experience, and that we really enjoy those 2 first weeks of getting to know each other and training hard, but also making sure we have an awesome time. So that'll be my highlight of cross country. In terms of track, we spend a lot of time on the road, and I really enjoy those trips. It gave me an opportunity to enjoy a more relaxed and casual, laid back environment with teammates and coaching staff, and at the same time, it was an opportunity for me to get to know the surroundings of Portland and getting to know Oregon and Washington, even California. We traveled to a lot of different places, and for me, as an international student who didn't hadn't really come to the U.S. prior to this, it was an awesome way to getting to know the surroundings of Portland and Oregon, definitely.
So, with racing and running, do you plan to stay competitive now that your intercollegiate career is done? What is it about that idea that kind of motivates you?
Yeah, I started running competitively a couple of years before coming to Lewis and Clark, and since the very beginning, to me, it became a long term project. I plan on running and competing as long as my legs and my mind allow me to do so. And going to Lewis and Clark was really good for me to become a mature athlete and for me to take care of myself as an athlete in this stage where I'm more I don't really have a team now. I'll be I'll be training with my former coach before that I had before going to Lewis and Clark, but it's more of an independent activity now, more so, and I'm ready to tackle that because of all the experience I gained in my 4 years at Lewis and Clark. So going forward, again, I plan on training with my former coach, which now will be my coach again, I guess. And then but in Europe, things don't work as sports are not as associated with academics in as in the U.S. So I'll be joining a club team, and I'll be able to compete pretty easily. So that's my plan going ahead. I'm not sure yet what team or where exactly it'll be, but I'm sure wherever I go, it won't be hard to join a team and compete with them. As long as I stay focused and stay responsible in that sense and keep training as I've been doing, I'm sure it'll be it'll be pretty easy to compete.
It's kind of amazing, right? The more things change, the more things stay the same, right? Going full circle and now working with your coach that you had previously again. That's kind of a neat story. And best of luck, as you mentioned, as long as the legs will hold up, right? So, you were talking about injuries earlier and all that. I know it's tough on the body. So certainly stay safe. In addition to competing, I know that it sounds like grad school is in your future. Kind of walk us through what your plans are with your graduate school experience.
That's right. So I plan on going to grad school now. Prior to this whole pandemic, I was really hoping to get some works experience and some hands on experience before going to grad school. But as things developed, I thought it was the safest for me to remain in school since a lot of jobs were destroyed over the course of this past months, um, and really give myself time before going into the job market. I thought it was the smartest decision for me. So yeah, I'll be going to grad school in Germany in Halle. The university is called Martin Luther University. It's in the southeast of Germany, and I'll be joining them for a program in economics, in policy, and data science, which I'm pretty excited about. Again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the things I learned in Lewis and Clark, and especially in the economics major, were to turn the theory and learning how to apply it to a real case scenario and turn it into policy and be able to really change your surroundings in a way through policy and through economic theory. So I'm really excited about that, and mixing all that policy aspect with data science, which is more of a technical and analytical skill that I was able to touch on a little bit in Lewis and Clark through some of my math classes. So I'm excited to go deeper into that and really develop that skill.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. We'll miss seeing you on campus. You've been such a great presence on our campus. Wish you the best of luck. And as soon
Appreciate
as
it.
humanly possible, we can't wait to see people back on campus, including yourself again. Miguel Haro Ruiz, thanks for your time on lcpioneers.com live.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, fun conversation. He was a really cool guy to have on campus and someone who always was really excited to talk to us. Athletic communications is always interesting because I know, even especially after losses, we're asking student athletes to come over and talk to us, and that's not the easiest thing to want to do. And he was always able to do that regardless of the circumstances. So I was appreciative of that, and certainly excited to see how his experience in grad school, focusing on that data science area, as he mentioned, and continuing to run too. He sent us photos over the winter where he was competing on a New Year's Eve race that he says he's done a lot, and just kind of having that in his blood and really continuing to develop that And I love that anecdote too with him, having his old coach back too, working with him. So fun conversation. Certainly appreciate his time. We had more we wanted to get to too, and that's the downside of having the live show, a certain amount of time that we try to fit into, but perhaps have him back on a future episode of the show as well. So that ends this week of shows. Again, you can watch all of our past shows at youtube.com/lcpios, but next week we will have 3 live shows, and we have a chance to talk to Lewis and Clark's athletic academic coordinator, Pamela Finley. And her story is really neat too, because she's an assistant coach for men's basketball, a former Lewis and Clark women's basketball head coach, and really get a good idea from someone who, came to Lewis and Clark, experienced success as a staff member, as a coach, left, and then still wanted to come back because of all the things that Portland provides students. There's so many positives that she has to say about the area, and so excited to talk to not only the reasons for her wanting to come back to Lewis and Clark, but more so what opportunities she provides our student athletes by having in-house academic support. It's really cool. And then Jose Navarez is going to join us on Wednesday next week. He is now producing all of the live productions for the University of Portland. So he's in the Division I level job, doing similar things akin to what we've done for Lewis and Clark and PioStream. And part of the reason is because he really took over PioStream after it got started in 2010. And I'll be excited to talk to him about that, because it kind of laid the foundation for what he went on to do. And then we'll continue with Josh on Friday, former Lewis and Clark men's swimmer who is now in medical school and recently married, as far as we understand it, getting married today. If not today, it was last week. So have a chance to talk to Josh on Friday next week as well. So until we have a chance to do that, hope you have an excellent weekend, an opportunity to celebrate, have a great kind of hot weather as the summer starts to wind down, opportunity to hopefully enjoy things outside, but obviously still stay safe as the pandemic is still very much here. We will continue to update you as our student athletes and students will start coming to campus in the coming weeks at lcpioneers.com/COVID with all of our reopening fall 2020 plans, including a link to the Lewis and Clark reopening plans as well. We'll keep the best of communication that we possibly can on our website, lcpioneers.com/COVID. So until then, next week, more shows coming up on lcpioneers.com live. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again on Tuesday. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.